Peace and blessings. This video is for one of my Instagram moms, and her name is LovelyLJ1. And I'm going to try to make this video really quick because I have children running all over the place. She's going to get you some grapes. Okay, the first question I'm going to answer is, what type of reference books do I have? Now, mind you, I've been homeschooling for 11 years, so I've accumulated quite a few books, so I'm just going to kind of go through them, give a really quick summary, and then I'll post the names of the books in the description box. Okay, if you watched my How to Build Your Own Curriculum video, you'll see that I shared this book along with a few others. How to Homeschool, Home Learning Year by Year, How to Homeschool Your Children from Pre-K to High School, through 12th grade. And I used this in the very beginning of my journey back in 2002 with my youngest. And basically this book tells you everything that they're supposed to learn from pre-K all the way up to 12th grade. It offers websites, links, references, books, activities, and games that you can use in these particular grades. I will say, because this book was created in like 2000, some of the links in here don't work. So if you happen to go across a resource in here and it doesn't work, but you want something similar, I would just Google it and see if you can find what works. But the basic information in here is good. Okay. Another book that I purchased was How to Write a Low-Cost, No-Cost Curriculum for Your Homeschool Child. And basically, this shows you how to break down your curriculum, your course of study. It talks about your philosophy, your reasons behind homeschooling, how to focus on short-term goals, long-term goals, how to write down objectives for your homeschool, what objectives look like. It also talks about the laws in all 48 states. However, this book is also a book that was created in the 90s, so I would definitely check out a website like hslda.com for updated information on the homeschooling laws. But the other information here is very pertinent and still relevant today. The Well-Trained Mind. Absolutely love this book. I checked this book out so much I had to just buy the book. And this is basically a book explaining the classical method of homeschooling, and it's based off of the Trivium. So they tell you what is to be learned in each stage of the classical method, what type of activities, resources, and methodologies you can use in this method. I will say some people shy away from the classical method because I think it's solely for Christian individuals, but that is not true. You can take the Trivium model and you can tweak it to fit your secular model, or if you have any other religious or spiritual background, you can take this model and still apply it. So I don't want anyone to shy away from the classical method just because it's most of the resources that you see around it are Christian based. Okay. Here's one. Homeschooling Methods. This book basically talks about the major methods that are out. You may hear classical, unit study based, Charlotte Mason eclectic. Now they have like Delight Learning. That's something new that I've heard in the past few years. You have the traditional method, the traditional textbook method. They basically talk about all those different methods in here and how those different methods are executed in the homeschool environment, and how you can choose what method is best for you and your family. Another book that I purchased years ago was Homeschooling for Success, How Parents Can Create a Superior Education for Their Child. And this basically, again, this talks about the different learning styles, different methodologies, how to get started. If you're a single homeschooling parent, how you can create an environment that works for you and your work schedule. Talks about the traditional times, and it talks about non-conventional means of educating. So this is a pretty good book. This book I really like, The What Now of Learning Styles, and this book basically, she gets to the nuts and bolts of all the different learning styles and how you can apply different activities and strategies based on those learning styles. She's actually pretty funny. She goes through her own experiences with her children and she applies that here, and then she talks about the methods that she used. I really like this book. Homeschooling the Challenging Child. I purchased this for my son when we started realizing that he was having some struggles. And this basically, it's written by a Christian mother, but you can still get a lot of good jewels out of this book if you're not a Christian. and she basically tells you, you know, what to look for, what not to look for, defining special needs, and defining some of the basic special needs or learning disabilities that we hear of with children. So this was a really good book as well if you're dealing with a child who has special needs or is struggling a great deal. The McGraw-Hill Homeschool Companion, again, it's another one of those books that get you started, how to get started, the resources that are out there, all the different activities, curriculum, and all that good stuff. Homeschooling in America. This book was recently printed, I think it was 2010 or 11 or something like that. I know it was within the last maybe 3 to 4 years. But basically, this book is for anyone who has family members who are questioning homeschooling, how valid it is. This was just based off of what I see as empirical research. There is no opinion. Everything in here is solely based off of research. This is not what this person thinks it is. It's what they found based off of the responses they got from other homeschoolers and those in the educational field. I have the core series, the core knowledge series, what your first grader needs to know, what your fifth grader, first grader, all these books. These books basically tell you what children are supposed to learn in each grade and what most public schoolers are learning. So if you're one of those homeschoolers that are trying to align and make sure that your children are on the same page as homeschoolers, as public schoolers, this book will tell you that. It tells you the literature, the poetry, the history, math, all that. The only thing I'll say about these books is they're very westernized and very Eurocentrically based when it comes to literature and history. So in that area, if you're like me, I go out of my way to make sure that I have a lot of African-centered resources in literature as well as in history. So I really don't take the history and the literature out of this book. I just take all the other basic stuff. You have grammar, math, science, all that type of stuff. This book, The Complete Home Learning Source Book, the Essential Resource Guide for Homeschoolers, Parents, and Educators, covering everything from arithmetic to zoology. And this basically gives you a ton of resources, literature, books, games that you can use with your children in all these different subjects. They are divided by age and subject. So it will tell you this is for children 13 and up, or this is for preschool children. And then it basically just goes in all the different resources you can use in those particular areas. So I've had this book for many, many years, and I refer to this one quite a bit still to this day. Montessori from the Start. I purchased this book just to get background knowledge on Maria Montessori and her philosophy and what got her started, which was actually quite interesting based on her research. When she was seeing the children in the camps and how they were reacting and what she noticed that they needed, and she started to work with them, and she noticed different things in their development, so she started to create her own activities and her own environment for the children to learn. So I'm just reading this, taking bits and pieces of this and applying it in my home to my young children. And this book was actually created by a homeschooler. She has a blog. I'll post the link as well. Her name is Marianne Sunderland, and she has 7 children, 6 of which are dyslexic, and she basically talks about her journey with her children, what the early signs of dyslexia are, the type of resources that are available, the type of curriculum that's available, whether or not you should seek external help through a tutor or through a specialist, and all that good stuff. So it's a really small book, but it's packed with really good information. And I have other books, but they're really not so much as research books. They're just people. It's kind of like an anthology of people sharing their story. Okay. If this video cuts off, I will do a part 2 because I'm on my phone. Another question: how did I make my binder dashboard? I actually have these clear. These are covers for binded when you bind. If you see in my other video, I have a comb binder, and these are just the covers that you put on the comb binder to protect the pages inside. So you put one of these in the front and the back of whatever document you have. And I just punched holes in it, and I put washi tape on the edges just to add a little, decoration and to get rid of these points. So that's basically all I did with this. You can take whatever, laminate a piece of paper or laminate a laminate sheet if you want to go there, poke holes in it and use that as a dashboard. Basically, again, dashboard is where you just put whatever you want to have at your grasp immediately or what you see yourself using frequently throughout your planner. And last but not least, how do I balance children's school and chores? It's always a work in progress. I delegate chores to all my children, and they are responsible for carrying out different things throughout the house. So everything is not solely on mom. They have their responsibilities. I oversee and make sure that it's done. And mainly the chores, they're done before school and they're done after school, and on like really detailed chores are done on the weekends. Balancing school, we have our set hours for instruction, and with me it's one of those things where you actually have to watch us to see how it works, because every day is a little different. I have my older children and then I have my toddlers, so we may shift the day a little bit or we may switch up subjects a little bit depending on what the toddlers are doing. So again, that's one of those things where you'd have to kind of see like a day in the life type of thing. I don't know if I get into one of those videos, but it balances out. My children, my older children, have grown up into it and are trained to know what's expected of them, so I don't have any issues. And now I'm just training my younger children up in the same way, so they know the schedule, they know the routine, and everything goes accordingly to that. So I hope this answered your questions. If you have any other questions, feel free to inbox me. Peace.